r/AskReddit. People who have jobs where you go inside homes. What's the worst thing you've seen? Used to work for a service company that would respond to apartment renter issues. Walked into a studio apartment at a upscale complex for a reported issue with the dryer. As soon as I walked in, a majority of the walls were covered with porn from porn magazines. The renter tore out hundreds and hundreds of pages from dirty magazines and tacked them to the walls. Everything else was normal and clean. The furniture was clean. The floors were clean. No evidence of hoarding of any kind. Kitchen was spotless. No smells or odors. Apartment was fully organized. But just porn all over the walls. Honestly, this one is kind of refreshing after all the cat litter and insect infestations I've read through in the rest of this thread. Yup. Some good clean porn.
Claim your free AirPods today by clicking the first link.
I was a paramedic for years. I encountered many homes in severe disrepair or in hoarder status. But one in particular comes to mind. It was late morning/early afternoon one day and we received a call for assistance. I do not recall the nature of the issue itself, but it was non-life threatening. We responded to what is normally an upper middle class neighborhood with nice size family homes. As we arrive at the address, I knew it was going to be an issue from the get-go. This address appeared to be abandoned from the exterior. The outside of the house was in okay shape, but it didn't appear as though any sort of maintenance had been performed in years. Grass as high as the Serengeti, fallen tree limbs littering the front yard, overgrown bushes, etc. The bushes closest to the front door were so overgrown that it was inaccessible. We decided to go to the back door instead. To get to the back of the house we had to walk down the driveway in a crouched position because the trees were so overgrown it was impossible to stand straight. The backyard was fenced in, so we opened the back gate and made it to the back door. By this time, our city fire department also arrived to assist us. As is common on most medical calls, the back door was heavily crowded by an overgrown tree as well. But not to the point where we could not gain access. We knocked several times, but nobody came. We confirmed with communications that this was the correct address before we entered. The back door was unlocked, so we opened it and announced our presence. Moments after opening the door, it became evident that we were in over our heads. The back door opened up to what I imagine was the living room in front of us and the kitchen to the left. There was an unforgettable odor of mold, stale garbage, urine, and feces. It was quickly apparent why this was the case. There was no floor visible. The entire floor of the house was covered in at least 1 foot of trash. Literal trash. Empty chip bags, crumpled paper, discarded, rotten food waste, old torn magazines. You name it. The trash had become the new floor. The fireplace in the living room was filled with ash to the point that there was a pile of it spilling out several feet onto the floor of trash. Years of fires having never been cleaned out. Sitting in the middle of it all, covered in trash like a blanket covering his legs, was our patient. Probably mid-30s, early 40s, morbidly obese, over 600 pounds, nude. He reports that he had fallen over a week earlier and was just unable to get back up. When asked how he had been sustaining himself, he said people from his church came by several times a week to bring him food and drinks. Yet despite this, it took until now for somebody to let us know. They would come give him the food and leave. The conditions inside the house were worse than I can describe. It was so bad. We had to all wear HEPA masks and the fire department wore their SCBA for safety. It was so dirty, dank, and musty that the air itself was deemed harmful to even breathe. Bear in mind that he has been in that spot on the floor for over a week now, buried in years worth of trash. That spot had been his bed and bathroom. He urinated on himself and defecated on himself for over a week in that same spot. It was summertime in the south and he had no AC. The effort to get the patient out of the house and to the hospital is another story on its own. but I will mention that it involved the fire department having to cut trees down just to get him to the ambulance. One of the police officers that was also there reported that all the toilets were overflowed and that the bathtub was filled with water, so stagnant it had turned green and had mosquito larvae living in it. I found out that a few hours after we had transported the patient, the city actually came in and condemned the property. It was so bad. The dude was really nice too. He had lived there for years, but was unable to keep it up, but too proud to ask for help. So instead he lived a nutter squalor worse than any crack house I had ever been in. I think about that guy regularly, wondering where he is today and if he ever made any improvements to his situation. Edit, my first gold ever. Thanks friend. WTF was up with his church group coming by with enough food to get him to 600 pounds, but couldn't get it together to maybe take some trash out. My guess is that he refused the help. Unless you're willing to go all in and basically force help on someone. If they don't want your help, it'd be outright rude to give it to them. Does seem odd that they would bring food and drink to him inside the house and he didn't ask them to call an ambulance or something. Whole story is just weird. I used to clean carpets. We went to a double wide trailer once that had about 20 cats inside, plus 3 dogs. I didn't see a single litter box, and by the time we were done, the slate grey carpet was almost white again. The ammonia smell inside about made me puke, but the old couple that lived there acted like nothing was wrong. It's amazing what you can get used to. Ike. Old people take a while to get used to. It was a while ago, but one guy's house had a hole cut between 2 floors and had a lovingly maintained old Victorian steam-powered concert organ set up in the hole. Not necessarily bad, just odd. It was a regular suburban house. Owner was super weird though. The rest of the house was filled with garbage and smelled like cat pee. But where were the cats? In the giant piano. It wasn't loud, because it was actually a cat playground and didn't get played. I was a realtor showing a house that had a tiny powder room. The owner had attempted some kind of Forks finish sponge painting technique in bright red over white walls. It looked like someone had pulled out a full tampon and helicoptered it. Now this room is definitely taste specific, but you'll want to take note of the complete absence of dead cats. Thanks. I needed a laugh after all those dead cats. This one is bad. Not so much for its gross factor, but rather the circumstances. I used to work in pest control in a major city and this included solo income rentals. I was inspecting for bed bugs when sure enough, I found them in one of the units. Being that this was a number of years ago, it was and probably still a standard practice to toss out the mattress entirely. Have you ever tried to tell someone who probably has no disposable income that they need to throw out their mattress and buy a new one? That pretty much killed my day. Edit, I didn't expect this to catch on. I thought I would add a little bit more context to the overall conversation. When I first started with this company, the resurgence of bed bugs was still a pretty new phenomenon, and credit to my employers. They moved quickly in researching and improving our approach. We eventually moved on to recommending mattress covers certified for bed bugs, heat treatments, and even integrated a bed bug sniffing dog. We also started doing lectures for hotels in the area, training the staff and what to look out for as they were cleaning rooms, and I would translate in Spanish. I eventually went back to school full time, but man, that whole aspect of my job moved so fast in terms of management and equipment that ducking blows. Wouldn't they also have to power wash most of their clothes and not wear them for a while? One of my friends got bed bugs in her room after having a human hit bag of a friend sleepover, and she basically had to vacate the space and keep everything in plastic garbage bags for more than a month. Needless to say, she did not enjoy sleeping on the couch in the living room of a college rental house. I live in a state where bed bugs are super common. And I got them when my downstairs neighbor decided to go to the local hardware store to pick up a bug bomb instead of hiring a professional. Those home bug bombs don't kill them, but just make them flee the area, pun intended. And they moved into my apartment. We hired someone to spray the whole place. Used little cups that go under the bed so they can't climb up the frame. Bought mattress and box spring protectors. etc. We were able to use the mattress for another 6 months without issues thanks to those protectors, and threw it out when we moved. Washing the bed bugs doesn't kill them, but drying them on super high heat can. Afterwards you put your clothes into garbage bags, so they can't spread if any survived, and basically work out of garbage bags as your dresser/closet for a few weeks. In all it probably cost us $800 and a lot of work. Which is tough for anyone who has financial trouble. But isn't as bad as dropping a couple grand on a new mattress, and replacing all of your clothes, etc. Bed bugs suck. I would wish them on my worst enemy. I used to work for a carpet cleaning company. I've had some interesting stories, but this one always takes the cake. We had this program where we hired special needs people part-time. So we hire this new guy, Bob. Bob's a rather large fella. Not the fastest thinker, but real nice to work with. Bob and I showed up to clean a couple rooms in this couple's mansion. It was immaculate. 2 gay men in their 40s. Never mind the paintings of half-naked dudes all over the walls. So part of our job is to move furniture to clean under them. I had Bob help move the bed. And this giant 2-foot leopard print Vinnie rolls out like a dead possum. Bob stares. No word spoken. I clean around it, kick it under the bed, and move it back. Bob and I finish the job, and get in the van to leave. Bob turns to me and says, "Where did they get that leopard spine? And what are they gonna do with it?" I still cannot tell this story without laughing. And this giant 2-foot leopard print Vinnie rolls out like a dead possum. I love how, among the sea of stories about dead animals, this story about X toy still manages to allude to dead animals. Nevertheless, this story made me smile. I used to clean carpets for a living and we were sent to a Section 8 home that had recently had the electricity shut off. We went in to survey the situation and, after locating a flashlight, realized the 6-foot high mound in the living room was all dirty diapers. We did not clean that carpet. This made me gag. Bravo. It was the second foulest thing I ever smelled. The first one being when we were sent to clean carpets for a woman who was clearly breeding chihuahuas in her house. It was 95 degrees and we were using steam to try to clean gallons of yip dog piss out of the carpet. Most overpowering smell I have ever smelt. The bathroom floor covered in feces and urine, floor stained brown, and I had to clean it on my ducking hands and knees. Going to quit this job this week. I worked cleaning houses for a while and legally your employer cannot ask you to clean bodily fluids without protective equipment. I worked for a while cleaning offices. And one of our clients was a doctor. Our employer just gave us gloves and spick and span. There was a puddle of blood the size of my hand in one of the rooms, and when I called him to ask what to do, since I wasn't doing it without PPE, he told me to put on a glove and wipe it up. That was pretty much the last straw. I deliver food for my restaurant, and one time I pulled up to the gate of this house. The resident told me to just come inside and deliver the food, since she was wheelchair bound. Okay. Cool. I get to the door and I discover a biometric fingerprint scanner that unlocks the door, along with a camera. I press the doorbell and the resident opens the door. I take the food to her in her living room, and as I look around this lady has an electronic code lock installed on her fridge, pantry, and the back door to go outside is card accessed only. The garage door is quadruple bolt locked, and the windows have window-sized garage doors on the inside. I hurried the duck up out there and told my manager to never put me on delivery runs again. Maybe the lady had an issue with family members taking advantage of her disability and stealing her valuables. I say this because it happened so many times with my wheelchair-bound granddad. He had to do the same thing. WTF is wrong with people? Vertical bar. I used to work for a company that did fire, water, and mold cleanups. We got called to a mold cleanup due to water damage. And these people were hoarders. Useless hit stacked to the ceiling. All of it had to get tossed due to being in contact with a really toxic form of mold. So once we reach the basement and we are tossing hit, we find 2 cat carcasses. The whole basement smelled terrible. We knew something was up, but we couldn't really put our finger on it until we found the decayed cats. The owners just shrugged it off. Disgusting people. Could you tell if they were stray cats that got in, or if they belonged to the owner? My parents had a raised house in Dallas. For some reason, dying cats would get under their house to die. For a while my dad was pulling a different dead cat almost daily. He finally got the bottom of the house properly sealed. Many animals hide to die peacefully, read that, without being eaten by predators. It happened to us too. We even had birds in there. It was freaky. I did remodels for a while. The worst one was a legitimate hoarder. That house was disgusting. She had to clear a path for us to get to the bathroom with our tools, so we could work. Lots of cats too. The house smelled very strongly of cat piss. I'll never forget when I went to the back looking for the water hose. There was a pool filled with disgusting algae covered water and a dead cat floating in it. I was very happy when that job was over. At least her bathroom looked great. What the actual duck? Did she know that cat was in there? I'm not sure. I think my coworker may have told her, but I never mentioned it to her. I could write a book. Roaches effing everywhere. Crawling on the homey awana. They don't seem to notice. A live possum that got in and won't leave. Dead animals that were left where they expired for extended periods of time. A live possum that got in and won't leave. This is my favorite. A wild animal finds its way into a home, and the reaction is passive acceptance. This is pretty much my family's reactions to geckos/lizards that make themselves comfy in our house. Added bonuses that they get rid of spiders and mosquitoes, so I guess it trades off.